Again, we've been walking back in time to find the original story of the Gangster Disciple Nation. We want to clear up a lot of the mess that's been attached to it. You gentlemen lived it and shine a little light on the truth of it.
Bobby Longstreet had a Bible in his hand, and Bobby used to read the Bible all the time. And he looked and he said, you know what, we're going to call ourselves disciples. We're going to help the neighborhood, help the peoples in the neighborhood so it won't be like this. And that's what we started off as a drum-and-bugle corps, protecting the neighborhood and stuff, because Bobby and Laverne Longstreet was a little older than us. And that started from there, became the disciples.
What was first, Black Disciples or
Devil Disciples?
Devil Disciples.
Yeah.
Give me some history on that.
Groups that were affiliated with us. Now, like we had 3Ds, you know. There was Maniac Dudes, Devil Disciples, and Dale Factor. They were the 3Ds. You know. That was the beginning of a period of time where we controlled whatever we were in.
The disciples began to register and legitimately become an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And who gave you the information, or you guys?
A guy named Michael Shane. He was older brother, smart. He used to hang with Jesse Jackson in the Cosmopolitan Chambers once. This guy was a pimp. I don't know what all Mike wasn't.
So he taught you how to
address myself, how to talk to people.
How to create an organization legitimately.
The first title, the first charter we had was in Black Disciples' name.
Wow.
You know, we got cooperated.
So now we have 4 and 5 different organizations pushing toward the same goal. But we haven't gotten into the insanity of life yet.
No, we haven't.
It was a brother told me, we used to go to school together named Charlie Atkins. You know, he'd say, man, we're going to have an organization, man. We're going to have a meeting, and we're going to meet. You know, he was a dear friend of mine, you know, saying, yeah, I want you to come, you know. So I said, okay, you know, because everybody was all over, all parts of Inglewood, you know, and stuff. So when I, you know, go to this basement, I said, yeah, man, say, this is Bobby Laverne, you know, handsome guy, built, you know, and spoke very powerful and articulate, you know. Now the basement, it probably couldn't accommodate no more than like about 150 people.
Okay.
But at the time we get into the basement, there's about 500 people crowded up in there, you know, like sardines, you know.
Right.
I said, man, you know.
What's really going on?
Yeah. I said, man, this is magic. If a brother in the neighborhood could rally 500 brothers, you know,
right.
Soldiers, you know, they was there, you know.
Wow.
I was like, I'm sitting there looking, like, he got up and he started speaking, you know, and I'm looking at him and stuff, you know, and he's speaking, and brothers, they got this obedient attention, you know.
The Devil Disciples was out. It was one of the #1 branches outside of the Speed Kings. My brother Pluto was running the Speed Kings.
Okay.
As the king at that time, which I didn't know.
Okay.
A brother named Laverne Longstreet had started the Devil Disciples that I later found out was the original starter and leader of that.
Okay. Disciple idea. And as we develop that, what becomes the foundation of the disciples?
Bobby Longstreet and Laverne Longstreet. Laverne was the leader of the disciples back then.
But Temp Harris, Laverne Longstreet, they introduced Devil Disciple within the organization.
This was a fact. So now, Laverne Longstreet, he stayed where the Dan Ryan is at now on 54, where that Dan Ryan is at. That's where his people stayed.
Okay.
So when they started tearing the Dan Ryan down, Laverne and Leonard, they moved to Inglewood.
Okay.
And Laverne started the 6 Trey Cobras. That's what they were at first. They were 6 Trey Cobras.
Okay.
They went from Racine all the way to Woodline.
Okay.
One of them was East Side Cobra, West Side Cobra.
Charlie Atkins kind of got into it with Laverne Longstreet and Bobby Longstreet, and he knew David was getting ready to come home, and he picked the argument with Laverne Longstreet and them and said, well, we're going to pull away from y'all. We're not going to call ourselves the disciples no more. We're going to call ourselves devil disciples.
Okay.
That's how that came along. A lot of us didn't go for that name. And by him being our leader, we kind of had to go for it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't nobody really want him to be the leader. He kept a lot of stuff up.
Okay.
So when he got into it with Laverne, what Laverne did was he changed the name to Six Straight Devil Disciples.
Oh, okay.
And that's what they were. They were Six Straight Devil Disciples.
Okay.
You had East Side Six Straight Devil Disciples, you had West Side.
You know, disciple, and they call this the devil's disciples, you know. And
Did they-
it was some other, you know, other organizations, you know, like
Right.
Gonzados and the Ravens, you know,
Right.
periphery to that, but they was the central, you know, and
Question.
that was the beginning.
Question. In that basement, is that the creation of the name Devil Disciples?
That was the genesis.
That's where
That
it
was
happened.
the genesis, yes.
which will become devil disciple.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So by him introduced, he chose David to be the leader.
Who did?
Laverne,
Okay. Longstreet?
yeah,
Okay.
and Champ Harris.
Okay.
They the one that initiate that. You know, they didn't want it, but they needed someone in the street to protect one. You know what I'm saying? So this is where Devil Disciple come in. We created, you know, from a group to a mob to a gang.
He used to have a habit of saying, we're going to be united. We're going to love one another because that's how we came out with D from the knee, love from the heart and stuff. And we're going to treat all the elderly peoples and the peoples in the neighborhood with respect, and we're going to help them if we can and stuff. So that's how that began from the disciples to just loving one another.
When I met David, he wasn't nothing. You know, it wasn't no Devil Disciple. You know, it just was 63rd Street boy.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So by me being introduced to David and the rest of the guys who spent the night at my aunt's house, you know, I became familiar with them.
Then progress went on. David Boxdale took over.
Okay.
So my brother and all got behind David Boxdale. While we was Gonzatos, we was still hollering Devil Disciples.
Okay.
It's a deep thing. Psycho, you know, we were still saying that. And my brother then went on to be disciple.
King David play a part. Where does he enter?
Very powerful personality, you know, was able to command obedience.
David was an egotistic man. A lot of people say, oh man, David's a good guy. No, David was an asshole.
So David had the power to command rebellious spirits, you
Right,
know.
yeah.
And that's what made him King David,
Right.
you know.
But they loved him. You know, he stood for righteousness. You know, he want to take people on a different path. He's a guy that you want to be around, you know what I'm saying, because he uplifts the spirit. You know, he take the homeless and make them a home, you know what I'm saying?
Up under King Dave once, it was about the peoples, the communities, our families, and harmony. We didn't steal from each other, fight each other. We couldn't do none of that without permission.
Right.
We refused to let peoples come into our communities and steal, rape, robbery, anything like that.
My memory of him is that we didn't always agree. You know, we had some disagreements, you know, some friction sometime, but the love was never lost.
Right.
You know, we seen each other in private. We embraced one another.
Was he at that meeting?
No, he wasn't there. At that
Okay.
night. No.
Somebody had wrote a letter and saying that David said he'll be home in maybe a couple months or something like this. When the disciples started, he was in IYC, Illinois View Commission. Charlie Atkins was our leader then, and David was locked up. And Charlie got resentment because he knew David was really our leader in a way of speaking when we was kids. David was the toughest and the baddest man, and that's who used to be the leader, whoever could outbox anybody or do things.
Disciples, and they tell their literature. They say the three kings. You know, the three kings is Charlie Atkins, Laverne Longstreet, and David Boxdale. Laverne Longstreet and Charlie Atkins are Cobras.
So would you say about this time, everybody begins to gravitate toward Devil Disciple?
Yeah. It was like Kilroy, Roy Dawson, Mickey Jenkins and stuff. They didn't go for that name, and they got into it with Charlie about that name. We had a big meeting and stuff, you know, and they wanted to go back to Disciples. Charlie knew David was coming home. And at St. Bernard, Herb Ken used to give dances around at St. Bernard Church back in the day. And that's when Charlie jumped up in front of Mickey's face and said, y'all gonna be dead or something. And you know, hey, what you talking about? Charlie called himself splitting the club up because of that, because David was coming home and he wanted to still be the Devil Disciples, and everybody else wanted to be just disciples because we was losing the meaning of that word disciples. You know, to help people and stuff, and Devil Disciple, when you put that devil on it, that means
Exactly.
you renegade, you
on another
a bad
spectrum.
spirit. You know?
Right.
So yeah, and that's when the club split it up from Charlie Atkins.
David beat up Charlie, and that's how David got the disciples. That's how he got the 6 straight disciples. Once David beat him up, David became the leader.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And David was a more aggressive leader. David was one of them real guys, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't nothing to play with.
But he and Charlie stayed together.
No, Charlie fled.
You got King David involved with this organization. When does Mr. Hoover come into play?
If these brothers called themselves the Supreme Gangsters, they was on this side of Halstead. The Devil's Disciples at that time, that's what we would call, was on the other side of Halstead. The Devil's Disciples was a much larger organization, no disrespect to
I get
gangsters, but they were a much larger, much powerful organization, and they were interested in expanding.
When does David come into play?
And
with Larry?
wait, like I seen some earlier about Davis where we went to Larry's house and said at the beach. No, it's been a lot of different stories about how Larry and David got together, blah, blah, this. And
Right.
like I said, I wasn't with Larry 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So
Right.
whenever he did, mess with David or David mess with him, I wasn't around. And then if I was around, I'll walk away because I didn't really trust him.
Did you have a personal relationship with King David or Mr. Hoover?
Yeah, both of them was personal friends. It's always the mentality of an organizer to unify more people. The more people you have, the more influence and the more political power you have. And
Sure.
so I think that was, even if it was not conscious, but that was saying to unify. And these two organizations, they were going at it.
How do you divide Supreme Gangster?
Well, naturally, by the time we 15, 16, we started making a little noise in the community because David and Jeff them was at us because we was
Right.
the up and coming, new organization, and we refused to be nothing wrong with them organizations.
Where does Mr. Hoover come into play?
Later on, they were Supreme Gangsters.
Exactly.
And we used to fight the Supreme Gangsters because they had killed one of our buddies, Solomon.
Okay.
And it wasn't that many of them, but they holded their grounds on 6 to 8 in Halstead, 6 to 8 in Peoria.
He was invited to Jeff's
Okay.
center. And we sitting in there. And, teenagers, everybody, like in school, everybody noisy, this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden the doors open and you know how the light come in the auditorium.
Right.
Everybody got quiet.
Mm.
And we looked and Jeff stood there. I ain't know it was Jeff then. He
Right.
stood there for about 10 seconds. And then the first step he made, they stood up. Larry looking at me, I'm looking at him, what the hell? And he, Jeff came in, was quiet, took his position, said we had to say, and they did, only representing this and that. And Larry was truly impressed.
Right.
I was kind of bewildered because what the hell, this little funny looking dude, and he was small. That was before, he went to the joint.
Right.
A teenager. But wow, his presence.
I knew Jeff Ford before he came to prison. I knew him through his relationship with me and my organization, and my relationship with him and their organization. He was a brother by the name of Eugene Harrison. They call him Bull. Abraham was his holy name. He was the original leader of the Blackstone Range.
Whatever proposal Jeff brought to Larry, I wasn't there. But we talked about it and this and that.
Give me a little bit more about the relationship between the disciples and the Blackstones.
It was ugly. At first, it was real ugly. They was recruiting peoples. And you had to join the Blackstone Rangers in order to live where you living at and they what they call so-called neighborhoods or hoods or whatever. We didn't do that. And like I stated earlier, we had some friends that moved over east, and there was a lot of guys over east started hanging with the guys that we knew that come from our area, right? So they started the East Side Disciples.
Okay.
And that's what my brother was saying. We kind of got into it with the Blackstone Rangers when we first got it because they got mad because we was growing so much in numbers and stuff and we was doing. And I heard a statement, they saying, how can them ragtails, young guys do anything? Yeah, but they got fooled.
And by them in Hyde Park East, and we in Inglewood, and I don't know, David's smart. I don't know if he heard that they were talking to her with it, because Jeff at the time was recruiting and eating up everything east and the project, all that.
Right.
And I used to tell Gene Harrison, I wish we can get along some kind of way though, but y'all need to stop trying to recruit our guys, them East Side Disciples. Jeff didn't want to hear nothing. To me, he reminded me of Charlie Atkins.
Okay.
Looking for power and madness and stuff. No, we didn't get along with the Blackstone Rangers at all. And a lot of guys got killed behind all that. That's how the Blackstone Rangers came in play, and that's how the disciples, we came to fight them and stuff.
Larry was conversating with Jeff Ford. There was a difference in how we felt because of that. So that means if you're talking to Jeff Ford, he's trying to recruit you into his organization.
In your mind?
Yes. And so people was under the impression that Larry Hoover, the chairman, was involved.
It's like this. Jeff and David, to us, was, for lack of a better phrase, the ideal next generation then of Black Mafia. Larry idolized Jeff because the Stones was tight, regimental.
Right.
Like the Vice Lords on the West Side was economically in tune.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? The Stones over here was economically in tune.
Right.
No store gonna do nothing if we ain't.
If we don't sanction it.
Yeah, I long for them days because we had black gas stations. We had all that type of stuff there.
Hoover and Ike Taylor.
Okay.
And Ike Taylor was second in command. Tennessee was the prince.
Okay.
You see, King Dave was our king. Old Timer was our prince.
Okay.
Charlie went and that's where Larry shot. Once he had Larry shot, Larry asked for justice. That's what they talking about. Larry was a stone. He wasn't. Larry asked for justice. He came to Mick.
Okay.
And he asked for justice. And Mick liked it. Charlie, and he didn't give Larry that justice. So Larry went to Jeff. And he told Jeff, if you make me a Main 21, I'll bring my nation to you.
Right.
Well, Jeff didn't do that. Jeff like, no, man, I'll make you a second main body.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Larry said, fuck that. And he left and he went and took it over.
Right.
He took it over by himself. He just took it over. He wasn't even with Dave. Where all the Cobras was at.
Oh,
okay. South, Larry took that.
A lot of those guys became...
they became gangster disciples. Okay. Well, they became supreme gangsters at the time.
Okay.
But they wasn't gangster disciples at the time.
I get it.
They were supreme gangsters.
we were gangster in the 100. Remember I was telling you how the three organizations move like they move. So Larry had the gangsters.
Right.
So he was going around to get everybody that want to be a gangster. Let's all get together. Like, you couldn't be no disciple if you weren't a part of David's disciples. It can be Kazantos, it can be Eastside. You couldn't be a part of the Stones unless you was a part of Jeff and them piece with the 21 Prince, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So
Back in the Blackstone
the Ranger
Ranger days.
right?
Yeah.
So that's how it worked.
Okay,
So
so
when that started coming south,
okay,
that's when I met him.
okay,
Because I was with Rusty West.
okay,
Okay? Him and Larry was jam. So,
Okay.
but Rusty was my guy. So when they met, Larry's guys, you know, there with him, Larry, our thing, I'm with Rusty. Whatever he said, I'm going this way.
right,
Well, we all hooking up with Larry.
okay,
Okay? From my understanding, a lot of Stones guys didn't want him.
didn't want Larry.
They want Larry to be one of the Prince.
Oh, okay,
You know what I mean? To fit within the 21 structure or whatever it is.
okay,
You know
that
what I mean?
makes
I ain't
sense.
no Stone. I can talk gangster.
Right, I
You know
get
what I
it.
mean? Can't talk disciple.
Right,
Talk gangster, gangster disciple, black gangster disciple.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
I get
okay.
Never was an ambassador to Blackstone Rangers.
Larry.
Larry, in fact, no, not just Larry, all the original Supreme Gangsters.
Okay,
Never was Blackstone, even though we was cool because we had a common enemy
right,
with Jeff them, supposedly, right?
right,
But we didn't have too much interaction with Jeff them till they started coming, west and put up like the same levels on 59th
right.
and Carpenter Loomis up in there. And they had little branches here and there. But, we was concentrated in Inglewood.
Taken in with Jeff Ford by being a member, which it wasn't true.
You got Jeff and you got David doing their thing.
Right. When we got to fighting back, they didn't realize one thing. We was organized and we was all born and raised in the city and come up together, even though Larry and Few more was born in the South. We started fighting the disciples back. And somebody said, man, the way them little dudes act, they act like gangsters. And it stuck. And next thing we know, the SG went from Supreme Gents
To
to Supreme Gangster.
I want to kind of step back a little bit and talk about why did there have to be a merge between the organizations to become one?
Merge had to come from within because you had individual endeavor disciples and you had individual in gangster who said no, they didn't want the merge. But the merge had to come because we were shooting at each other, you know what I'm saying? And
At what time did Larry and King David start having that conversation?
It was in 68.
Merge of King David and Mr. Hoover.
the merge, it was a good thing and a bad thing. The good chairman, Larry Hoover, they created their organization in '66, and the devil came out in '64. So you in the same area, Inglewood, and what you trying to do, you trying to step up and be known. You're trying to get that number one spot, Then again, you just might get the spot to protect your little vicinity. But I doubt that because it grew overnight. Where conflict became against a disciple, devil disciple, and supreme gangster. Larry Hoover and David Boxtel. But there's so many rumors about who introduced who to who. First they said it was the Prince of Spring Gangster, Tennessee, may he rest in peace, introduced Larry to David Boxtel. I don't know how true that is, so I'm going to throw my hands up on that.
Tennessee was in jail with David. They was in the house of correction. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So they was school up in there.
Right.
So when Tennessee came home, he brought it to Larry.
What was Tennessee at that time?
Tennessee was a high supreme
High
gangster.
Supreme Gangster.
Then you had Dee Andrew Howard. Him and David were inseparable.
Dee, he was a 68th Street Cobra.
Okay.
That's Larry
Right.
Rappy. That's Mick first cousin.
Okay.
Messing with Dee,
Okay.
we was 6 days Cobras because we come up 68th Street. So and Dee Rich is Cobra.
Right.
You know, so we were 6th Street Cobra, and plus Cobras always have been allies to the disciples.
Right.
You know, so fell in place. And we were 68th Street Cobras for a minute, but by Larry being a natural leader, when David did get to talking, Larry, it made more sense because we was becoming young black revolutionary soul brothers because they had started televising the civil rights movement on TV.
At some point, you know, the other organization decided that they wanted to merge. They thought that it would be beneficial to merge, or it'd be mutually beneficial to merge, but it was a compromise.
That's when David said that both of them would have the title of king.
Right.
It became Black Gangster Disciples because then we was all into this cultural awareness piece in the 60s.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? Okay, so that's how that happened.
Right. Now, Larry was a supreme gangster.
He was a gangster.
Right.
You know, he was a supreme gangster. Everyone else there was a gangster. We had to.
Black was dropped in Black Disciple, and Supreme was dropped from the Gangster. And so they became Gangster Disciples. That was a compromise, you know, for the merge. I thought it was like a kind of step back, you know, and because, you know, I think that whenever you try to redefine yourself and say, no, we're not gangsters, you know, we have grown. But that's how that merge came about.
I used to tell David all the time that Larry is too close to us because we had heard that he went over there and tried to get with the Blackstone Rangers because he didn't have no clout with us. It was too many of us, you know. And Jeff didn't make him a main 21, told him he can be an ambassador, and Larry told him to kiss his ass, see if I can say it like that. He came back and we found that out. And I told David, you got to send somebody up there to talk to him, man. It's an unnecessary fight, even though they killed the man is right next door. And I was thinking, Larry Hoover. I said, just think, David, if Larry was with us, we had the whole south side of Chicago tied up. And I guess it was Kiro Pucci convinced David to do that.
You know what I'm saying? Tennessee went to David, you know what I'm saying? And they hooked that up, the Black Gangster Disciple.
Oh, okay. So they merged with
They
with
merged,
Larry.
right. And that's how well, at this time, Jeff Nim was the biggest thing in the city.
Right.
Them Stones. But Jeff Nim was moving in another direction at this time, and a lot of people didn't know that Jeff was moving in this direction.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Toward this Moorish American, where he was going in that direction. You know what I'm saying? And so what they used to do was call the disciples little boys. Man, them little boys, man, they stopped fighting them. They like, man, forget them little boys. You know what I'm saying? And they had Jesse in their pocket. They had a lot of people in their pocket.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And what happened was the disciples and the vice lords got to fighting downtown.
The vice lords and who got fight? Got
and
into
the, and, and the GDs. It was downtown. They was marching with Jesse Jackson.
Okay.
And they got to fighting each other downtown, and they started fighting, and that's what brought the fight out south between the Lords and the GDs. And it said the GDs started coming, well, it was the souls, the black souls. It was
Right.
originally black souls. You know what I'm saying? They was Roman saints at first. You know what I'm saying? They went from Roman saints to black souls.
Okay.
And they was in K-Town.
Okay.
So the black souls started taking over K-Town. You know what I'm saying? And if it wasn't a black soul, it was Supreme Gangster.
If I had to label those relationships, I would put them as some of the most profound relationships I've had in my life.
Wow. That's powerful.
I fought Larry. I sometime went against Jeff, who was Chief Malik. I sometime went against David. I sometime went against Don. I sometime went against Gino, the Latin Kings. But I've always had respect for their organization.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes the men might do things that I disapprove of or I object to.
Right.
And I would give my opinions about it, and it wouldn't set straight with some of them.
Right.
And we would have our words back and forth. But we always had enough respect for our organizations to respect each other's opinion. It's all right to disagree, but at the same time agree. And in some cases, we had to go to fight.
They'd be like, man, I need to talk to that guy, you know.
Which guy?
Larry Hoover.
Okay.
You know, and this was his thinking. The same thinking that David Hoover. If we merge together, we'd be the big organization in the city. So, you know, like I said, that was a good idea and bad idea because they were disciples, they resented that. And the gangs, they resent that, you know. But the majority ruled, you know what I'm saying? Then as a leader, you got to convince your guy the meaning and the concept why. Same as Larry Hoover had to do with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
The merge, a lot of people like, I can't accept that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
You was a man who was round the corner hiding when shit jumped. You know what I'm saying? So that make you a coward, you eradicated from the program, nigga, get away. But anyway, that was a good thing, you know, because the conflict between the two ended.
When the merge did happen, David and Larry were joined together.
Yes. They were like, I'm king, Larry Hoover king. And if something happened to me, you follow Larry Hoover.
The disciples, Brother Malik,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Ford with the Stone,
Mm-hmm.
and Larry Hoover
With the gangsters.
47th Street, there was like the mecca of the street life on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
So old brother Tennessee, they got together and convinced Larry to go with David.
Right.
So when Tennessee came home, he brought it to Larry.
So we had a big meeting in the church on 64th and Peoria, the church we had. I thought it was just a little, man. It must have been 500 of them Supreme Gangsters come down to the church.
Right.
You know. And David thought, well, he said, I ain't gonna just give you no leadership. I'm gonna make you a king next to me. And he had this little thing that he put on Larry's head, said, now you a king. So it's two kings. And we're not gonna call ourselves just the black disciple. We're gonna call ourselves the gangster disciple. So y'all will still keep some of y'all name because they was the supreme
Gangsters.
And then we was the black disciple. So it became GD.
Right.
It became GD.
This is when this mega powerhouse begins to get into play.
It was in '69 that Larry Hoover became the king of the Gangster Nation.
Oh, okay.
Crowned by King Dave. The sense to it was that if they did emerge, it would be a good move because long as Hoover and them were there and we were fighting them, they actually had us closed in.
Right.
You know? So Jeff wouldn't give Larry what he wanted, you see. So Larry wanted to rule his own peoples.
Right.
And Jeff was taking that from him because Jeff wouldn't allow him to be main 21.
Right.
So anyway, the talks was going on, and Hoover came on with it,
Wow.
and he became to be the king of the gangster nation.
Larry and David come together. Now you got those two forces being one force.
Right.
And you still got Jeff doing his thing.
Jeff had a nation.
But now back to the merge, it stopped violence against violence between BDs and GDs. So that was a good thing, which I said that was a good thing. Because David never broke his oath. He said, you part of me, one half is my whole.
Okay, so we're here in one of the birthplaces, can I say that?
Yeah, exactly.
Of this idea. Okay, and we're here on Harold Baskins Street.
Exactly. This is St. Stephen's Church. This is the parish here. This was the first place we had. And the preacher, he was white, stayed here. And we needed a meeting place and stuff, you know, and I used to come talk to the preacher all the time and stuff. So he said, oh, gee, he said, I'll let y'all have it just as long as y'all take care of the parish and stuff, you know. And so we can have our activities going on in here, you know, because we did a play. The first thing we did a play in here about the Blackstone Rangers and Disciples and stuff. You know, it was a play, we had the little shorties, Renegades and stuff was in the play, you know. And we used to have our meetings here and stuff, you know, so we had little activities going on in here. And this is the birthplace of the Black Gangster Disciples. The Black Disciples and the Supreme Gangsters merged together back in 1969.
Yes, sir.
You know, we was talking for 2 or 3 years trying to put it and formalize it and put it together. And when it came together, this is where we merged together. And it wasn't just Black Disciples, it wasn't Supreme Gangster, it was Black Gangster Disciples.
Right. Wow.
And that's how it started. I remember coming out, because one of the shorties came out and said, man, look at all these people coming down the street. And we was waiting on them. There must have been 400 or 500 people coming down the street. Supreme gangsters. This is where downstairs, it was like a little auditorium and stuff.
Right.
And Larry and David was on the stage. And Dee Dee introduced Larry and David to everybody. And David said, Larry is going to be the king of Black Gangster Disciples. I'm a king. It was 2 kings back then. It was Larry and it was David. You know, it wasn't no split. It wasn't none of this. It was 2 kings and always have been 2 kings. One king died and it's still a king. That's Larry Hoover. You know, so this is where it started at. This is how the Black Disciples and the Supreme Gangster merged at right here in St. Stephen's.
So now, Ike, take me back there in the moment when that happened, where my brother just left off.
So the night of the meeting, we was all sitting downstairs and Dave was talking and they was taking a vote. David said, we're gonna take a vote, we're gonna be Black Gangster Disciples or we're gonna go our separate ways. So he asked Larry for a vote. Larry stood up. We had been haggling back and forth for the last year or 2. Right. So David said, we're gonna take a final vote on this Gangster Disciple thing. So he asked Larry, he said, Larry Hoover, how you vote? So Larry stood, looked around at his gangsters, and he said, King David, we be Black Gangster Disciples. That's it, man. That's it. We went in, Supreme Gangster, Devil Disciples.
How did they represent?
One for the G and one for the D. That's how we stack them. And we cross them.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And from then on, we left here, went to 6th, 8th, and Green.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you couldn't see from one block to the next.
It was just that many people.
It was a black wave of brothers and sisters.
That's right.
And we were chatting. Black Gangster Disciples.
That's right.
BOS.
BOS. And look, over 50 years, 60 years, here we stand.
Right back. That's an amazing thing.
Here we stand.
What type of activities did you have?
All social
in
programs. We had educational programs. We used to feed people here. We danced, we roller skated, we argued, we fight, and we grew up here.
When this merge came about, it was a good thing. When it broke up, it became a bad thing. Well, it was good on one side and bad on the other side because GD had the numbers and the power. So they kind of squashed the BD. But in time, everything came back in order.
The young adults, man, can pay attention because the game is way more wicked and diabolical.
You brothers out there, learn your history, learn who you're talking to and what you're about.
In the 60s, that's when the black awareness was happening. Black Peace Stone Nation, Black Gangster Disciple Nation, Black Panther. Everybody had free breakfasts. Everybody was concerned about the safety of the community because we knew that it was corrupt police officers that was coming in, either giving the individual the bag or taking the tax
From the bag. Yes,
So
sir.
the community was looking to us to secure their community.
Yes,
But
sir.
you know how it go when the dope game came into the play. It changed everything.
The vices is there. You know what I'm saying? You got to choose what you want or what you believe. I tell brother, you know what I'm saying? Don't be faking in this. You know what I'm saying? Someone might get hurt. Then reading like education is the best thing there is, you know?
When the merge happened in '69, and Larry got that, people have asked, well, where does the BGDN come from? Well, Larry had a right to make some changes. But if you think about it, all he did, we were using the word black anyway. Back then, everything was black. Black Panthers, black this, black that. So all he did, he made sure that everything was right in place. Black Gangster, which was them.
Disciples.
Black Gangster, Disciple Nation, because we were so big then.
Right.
So it all was wrapped into those four words. Simple.
Right.
He didn't throw one out.
It was all incorporated.
Black, Gangster, Disciple, Nation.
Because you got
So it should all been the same, one thing.
right.
They united became the Black Gangster Disciple Nation.
Right.
When that split came, Larry still had loyalty of those original gangsters.
Devil disciples.
That's right.
Supreme gangsters.
That's right.
Come together as gangster disciples.
Nation.
And Larry puts the nation on it.
Thank you.
Power create enemy. Jealousy destroy.
Every one of these gentlemen that we're talking about has, somewhere in that process, they had to deal with the mess.
Oh, yeah. If I had to label those relationships, I would put them as some of the most profound relationships I've had in my life. And right today, Larry Hoover is one of my best friends.
That's powerful.
Jeff Ford is my little brother. Gino is one of the most righteous and trustworthy guys you want to find.
Wow.
From the beginning, it was love all around. Even though they resent that, but it still was love. Black Gangster Disciple Nation, that's what it came to. So when you understand that, then you can understand why David chose Larry Hoover to stop the killing in Inglewood and preserve somebody so their mama wouldn't be crying at night. So they came together and that part saved some lives.